Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I have with me the distinguished ambassador Talmiz Ahmad Sahab, who has served India for nearly 40 years as a diplomat, and critically, he has been India's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, twice to UAE and to Oman, most of the three critical countries currently involved in the Israel-US war on Iran. So we will be talking today about the latest security and diplomatic developments in the region, and we will start by talking about the so-called Mecca Defense Pact between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. So, Ambassador Saab, how do you see this new development? Is it really very serious? Because if you notice that within 24 hours after this pact was announced, the Houthis attacked a refinery in Saudi Arabia. And I've been waiting for the past 12 hours to see how the Makkah Defense Pact is triggered, whether it is triggered, whether they will respond. And if you remember, last year there was a lot of chit chat about Pakistan and Saudi Arabia Defense Pact, Mutual Defense Pact. And even though Saudi Arabia has been involved in conflict with Iran as well as with the Houthis in the past 1 year or at least 5 months, we have seen nothing of the Pakistanis defending the Saudis actively. So how seriously do you take this pact, and do you think it has legs? Do you think it has significance going forward?
I think it is an extremely significant development. It brings together three major Islamic countries of the region. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan were already they had concluded a mutual defense pact a year ago. Pakistan separately has very close ties with Turkey. The fact that the three of them came together is a very significant development. They have also framed their agreement in Islamic terms. They consciously signed the agreement in Mecca. They have termed it as the Mecca Declaration, their official statement, and the agreement itself as the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement. The fact that they are three major Islamic countries. In fact, Saudi Arabia and Turkey have in the past competed with each other for regional leadership is also important and significant. Having said this, the details of what this agreement entails have yet to be fleshed out.
Yeah.
The agreement itself notes that they have a broad understanding with regard to security concerns and interests. They are bonded by their Islamic heritage and by their ancient civilizational ties. But we don't know much more than this. Official spokespersons from the three countries have insisted that this defense agreement is not directed at any other country. It has no sectarian or religious value. It is not going to be looking at any nuclear matters, nor has it defined its geographical interest. So many things have to take place. They have still to be discussed. So I would say at this stage, it is very much a symbolic coming together. So the significance is primarily symbolic rather than in terms of its content. I would point out to you straight away, I do not envisage any scenario as of now in which either Turkey or Pakistan will attack Iran.
Okay.
Nor do I envisage any scenario in which Turkey and Pakistan will attack the Houthis. As you know, it has been referred to as an Islamic NATO agreement only by commentators. The government spokespersons themselves have rejected this idea. We also know, as scholars of these matters, that any such agreement that involves security concerns in second and third countries have to be discussed in great detail. Straight away, I would say to you that these three countries and possibly a few others who might join them over the next few weeks or months have to come together and frame a doctrine, a security doctrine, and linked with that, a military doctrine. which will set out in detail when their interests, what kind of discussions they will have in the face of a crisis, what kind of actions they will take in order to support their partners, and in what specific context. From flowing from this doctrine, you will need a common command headquarters, you will need a common budget, and you will need deployment of certain soldiers on a regular basis who will be part of this arrangement. We have a long way to go in this regard. What has happened is that the security scenario has deteriorated significantly. Conflict has expanded all the way from the Mediterranean to Tehran and beyond. Gulf countries have been attacked quite severely from the Iranian side. Iran has, of course, inflicted considerable damage on the American assets, but other assets of the GCC itself have also been hit quite hard. What has been noticed, and this is common across the region, across every country of the GCC, the United States has been found to be completely useless in terms of credibility as a regional security provider. So the first thing that we have to note, why these three countries have come together, they are expressing a shared disenchantment with the Americans and their role in terms of security in this region over the last 4 decades. Over the last decade and a half, we have seen that the Americans are fatigued as far as the region is concerned, and the region itself is also fatigued as far as the Americans are concerned. So these are what we are looking at is a nascent and it is an emerging arrangement to see whether these three countries and possibly others who join them have it within themselves the capacity to take responsibility for their own security.
So, uh, I mean, one way to read this is that it's a vote of no confidence in the United States straight away, saying that we feel that you are not able to provide for our security, so we are going to make some kind of an alternative arrangement. And there have been discussions about Saudi Arabia maybe reaching out to China and other places. But these three countries, all of them have very good relations with the United States. And so I am pretty sure they bounced this idea off the US before they made the announcement or signed any agreement. Each one of them independently would have reached out, especially given the improving relations between Turkey and the US. They are trying to get into the F-35 plan back again. And Pakistanis, basically after Operation Sindoor, Trump bailed them out from irrelevance to some regional significance. They are not going to compromise that. So there is, I think, a tacit okay from the US. And I'm just speculating here that the only way they may have convinced Trump to say okay to this is by saying this is against Iran. They can't say this is about Israel, right?
Absolutely right to raise these issues.
But they can't say this is about Israel.
Confidence in the United States, almost certainly, but none of the countries at this early stage wishes to take the Americans on. True. They don't want to snap ties with the Americans. They have very substantial political ties, economic ties, military ties. What they are looking at is, are they, without being hostile to the Americans, without discrediting the Americans publicly, they are discussing among themselves, can we take responsibility for our own security? As you know, successive American leaders have been saying this for several years, that regions should take responsibility for their own security. So this will be projected in the region as an attempt by major role players in regional affairs to take responsibility for their own security. The focus of all statements that we have seen is on collective defense and collective deterrence. This is therefore being projected as something which is not hostile to anyone. It is not directed at anyone. It is basically to see, are we capable of looking after each other's interests? The emphasis being on defense and deterrence. I think that is where we are likely to go forward. Not a single responsible source has mentioned Iran.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, you can talk about Iran as much as you wish, but I don't think, even with the paucity of intellect in Washington and understanding of the region, I don't believe that anyone in the State Department believes that any of these three is going to hit Iran, despite all the attacks on Saudi Arabia and the other GCC countries. None of them has thought it worth their while to attack Iran, and they are not going to do that.
Hakan
They have
Fidan
attacked
said it.
they have
Hakan.
attacked Iraq, and they have attacked the Houthis. As you know, the Houthis is also a separate category, a unique category. The conflict against the Houthis was actually initiated by Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
From 2022, you've had a ceasefire in place. It has only broken
Yeah.
very recently, when the Saudis attacked the Houthi, when they attacked the Sana'a airport,
Yes.
because an Iranian aircraft was coming back, and it was carrying with it a large number of
Houthis.
Houthis who had gone for the funeral in
Yeah.
Tehran of the former supreme leader. So that is the background. There has been a tit for tat attack after that. Basically, Houthis reminding the Saudis that certain issues remain to be addressed. But I don't think that the Saudis need either Turkey or Pakistan or this joint defense agreement to manage the Houthis. I think they would like to have a modus vivendi with the Houthis sooner rather than later, possibly as soon as there is some semblance of normalcy in the regional scenario.
So one of the things that Hakan Fidan made very clear, the foreign minister of Turkey, that this is not against Iran, and he actually spelled it out. And there is a lot of speculation that this might actually be about Israel rather than Iran, and there's that perception also going on. But Ambassador Saab, if you look at the history of these countries, the Arab League also in 1950 came up with a similar collective security agreement. And when Iraq was attacked by the US in 2003, or Lebanon was attacked by Israel on many occasions from 82 onwards, they never triggered the collective agreement, defense agreement with the Arab League. In fact, some Arab countries were colluding with foreign powers that were attacking fellow Arab countries. And even with GCC also has an Article 5 like agreement. And the only time it was triggered was when the US attacked Iraq. And so the GCC put some 10,000 troops apparently on the border to protect Kuwait in case Iraq retaliated against Kuwait. But during this entire mess with Iran, the collective defense agreement of GCC has not come to the fore. So if you are a country that is planning some strategic moves against any of these countries, would you factor in your thinking that, oh my God, if I attack Saudi Arabia, then it's actually as if I'm attacking Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey? Or given the past history of these failed collective security agreements, they might say, oh, this is just talk. They are not serious.
I would make 2 points straight away. Firstly, you're absolutely right about the history. The history, recent history even, has not given us a single instance
Yeah.
when any of these so-called collective security agreements in the past have been invoked and invoked effectively. There is no such habit. For far too long, the GCC countries have subordinated themselves to the American security umbrella. The disenchantment with the Americans has been steadily growing. It started in the early part of the last decade, and over the last 15 years, it has come to stay. Nobody now believes that the Americans are going to ever show any sensitivity as far as GCC interests are concerned. Even this recent conflict, not only had the GCC earlier in 2003 made very strong démarche in Washington suggesting that there should be no American attack upon Iraq, it will only benefit the Iranians.
Yeah.
And now they had very strongly agitated the point that there should be no attack on Iran, and that you should give the peace process, the dialogue process, the opportunity to be successful. They conveyed all this. What they have seen repeatedly and consistently is that the Americans take no cognizance whatsoever of the concerns of the GCC, and that successive American presidents subordinate themselves to Israeli influence. So, this is the background. I would say to you that the principal concern in the region is about Israel. And this has not been highlighted as much as it ought to be. The main point to be noted is today we are in a new and very difficult and indeed extremely dangerous scenario. You have in Israel an extreme right wing government. You have a government that does not hesitate to perpetrate genocide in the twinkling of an eye. In just 2 years, in the front of the international community on television, they have murdered 75,000 people. They have no hesitation in perpetrating mass murder in Lebanon and in the West Bank. Even today, as I speak to you, Netanyahu has conveyed to the Board of Peace and to Donald Trump that the peace process in Gaza is not acceptable, directly under pressure from the extreme right wing. And if you see the statements of the extreme right wing ministers in his cabinet, they don't want any kind of arrangement, any kind of truce even with the Palestinians. The statement of Ben Gvir is very clear in this regard, that the only option available to Israel is the mass migration of the Palestinians in Gaza and encouragement to mass migration and total destruction of Hamas. So I think that we have to be concerned. I would emphasize to you that the principal concern as far as West Asia is concerned today is not Iran, it is Israel. Israel also made its point very clear. When it attacked Qatar last year on 7th September, it was a gratuitous attack. Yeah. But having said that, I should point out that it was a signal. It was a signal to the GCC capitals that none of you is safe, that there is a new military hegemon in the region. And all the targets across this territory are fair game as far as the Israeli military is concerned. This message was understood. Within a few days, Saudi Arabia had gone to Pakistan and had the mutual defense agreement. And then, of course, a year later, we have this agreement which has come into play. This is essentially directed at Israeli adventurism. Israel today has no constraint whatsoever in terms of its military activity. It is capable of launching assaults anywhere, anytime, and lethal attacks. So many thousand now you have seen with regard to Lebanon. Nothing makes sense. How much violence they have perpetrated upon southern Lebanon, day after day, day after day, day after day. Hundreds of people being killed in the twinkling of an eye. So I would say that this is what has seriously concentrated the minds of the countries of the region, that we today have a danger that we never had before.
I understand that, in fact, especially after the decapitation of the Iranian leadership by US and Israel, I think the Arab leaders might actually be frightened that Israel could just knock off the royal families of these countries.
That was the signal.
Yeah.
That was the signal on 7, that we can pick up any one of you.
Yeah,
anytime.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest threat in the region.
And I also made it very clear, one small point.
Yeah.
We don't care that you are allies of the United States.
Or our allies.
No material significance to us. We are the hegemon. What they fail to recognize, and this is what something we need to emphasize, and the Americans need to emphasize, only Vance has done it so far in public, that whatever power the Israelis have today, it is entirely dependent on the Americans. They cannot fight for a single day on their own. The Americans give them weaponry, they give them diplomatic support, and they ensure that spare parts and intelligence support is extended continuously.
Yes.
Only now you find that when Netanyahu is fighting for his political life, that he has started posturing and showing to because he wants to retain his majority at home and is facing election shortly, that he has dared to take the American president on. I don't know what he has discussed with Donald Trump. and what posturing has been approved and conceded, or what has not been approved and conceded. But you will see that that only Vance has had the courage to say, remind the Israelis in public that the weaponry, the two-thirds of the weaponry you use is American made and paid for by the Americans.
Yes.
This is something that needs to be crucially made clear to the Israeli side.
No, the Israelis feel that there is no accountability, and they have taken American support for granted. For example, the CENTCOM commander today is in Israel. I don't know why is he there. Is he going there to report to Netanyahu or consult with the Israelis? I
It's
want
very
to,
difficult to
yeah,
understand who's doing what. You
yeah,
don't know that generals are being removed right and left in front of our eyes for
yeah,
various acts of culpability. 20 of them have been sacked. We
yeah.
don't know which of them are political generals and which of them are military generals.
I know. I want to turn a little bit towards India. And how does this, in your view, impact India in any way? Because it appears lately that India is doubling down on its alliance with Israel. There was an Amnesty report that India sent some 3,000, close to 3,000 sales of weapons to Israel during the Gaza genocide. On top of that, I think Netanyahu's phone call to Prime Minister Modi a day before the Mecca agreement was announced was, I think, him basically briefing Modi on what is happening, going to happen tomorrow. So, how do you think will this affect India's foreign policy in some way? Will India be more closely aligned with Israel as a result of this, or will India say this has nothing to do with us and it'll be business as usual? Or does it also make India a bit more hesitant to take more aggressive posture towards Pakistan because thinking, oh, this would mean that our relations with Saudi Arabia can be,
My
compromised?
answer to you is as follows. For a very long time, all through the present conflicts, which began in October 2023 and could within a few months reach the third year, end of the third year, India has not shown serious involvement and interest in the ramifications of these developments. Not only has it not taken any principled posture with regard to the genocide perpetrated against the Palestinians, it has not also played a significant political and diplomatic role to which would attempt to promote some degree of security and stability in the region. India, as time has passed, India has confined itself more and more within a fortress India or even fortress Delhi. I have regretted this many times to you and to other interlocutors, and it is a matter of very deep regret because of the crucial stakes we have in the region,
Yeah.
energy related stakes, economic stakes, trade, investments, joint ventures, connectivity projects that we talk about, technology connectivity that we have with regard to the regional scenario. And of course, we have our community. Our community numbers about 10 million. Every one of them supports 4 or 5 people at home.
Yeah.
They send to India $40 billion. If the conflict were to actually expand and become lethal, as you know, many of the attacks from the Iranian side have been symbolic in character. They have not done serious, except in 1 or 2 cases, not serious long-term damage. And the casualties, given the enormity of the conflict, the casualty rate has been relatively modest.
Yeah.
I regret every one of those passing away, and more than half of the people who were killed are actually Indian nationals. But imagine a horrible scenario, a cataclysmic scenario of the kind that Israel carried out in Gaza, a massive military assault across the GCC. So I think that that would really harm India's community and India's long-term interest. My answer now, what is India likely to do? As of now, we seem to be lackadaisical. It is the best word I can use. The focus is increasingly on matters domestic. We have failed to project to the region and to the world that foreign policy concerns and interests are as valuable to us as our domestic concerns and interests. In fact, the two feed each other. You cannot have one without the other. This sense of drift and directionlessness is something that we should be very deeply concerned about. I don't know. I'm a little wary about suggesting that we could up the ante with regard to confrontation with Pakistan. I'm doubtful. I'm not sure that given the economic situation we have at home, given the level of dissatisfaction that is being exhibited in different quarters, the major challenges that we have with some of our partners, some of our interlocutors, particularly in the United States, we have not been able to conclude some major trade agreements that we thought would have been concluded by now. I am not sure that India would like to see itself confronting a major military matter, including with Pakistan. Also, do recall that we still need to stabilize our ties with Bangladesh. Bangladesh also is a very major country. And with regard to China, we value the relationship with China, but we are also concerned about the expanding Chinese footprint in areas of security concern to us: Central Asia, West Asia, the Indian Ocean, where China is already a very significant presence and is likely to become much more robustly engaged. So I would say to you that as of this time, my recommendation on a positive note is to suggest a course correction. I would suggest very strongly that India has substantial ties with every country in the region. What we have failed to capitalize on is to engage with the region collectively. We must be voiced. We should voice our interests and concerns. We should be heard in the region. We should also take a principled position. A wishy-washy position, neither here nor there, on the one hand, on the other hand, is not helpful. We must articulate a very strong position in support of the Palestinian cause, because that is the right thing to do, and it is a moral thing to do, and it is in keeping with our tradition. I'm not saying alienate ourselves from the Israelis. There is a transactional relationship in place, so be it. I know there have been reports of certain equipment and certain spare parts going across from India. Israel has a joint venture in India, and that joint venture frequently takes government approval and supplies the parts that are required, particularly for drones. But let us be very objective here. The principal supporter of Israel is not India or any other country. There's only one country, and that is the United States. If you want to find a partner of Israel who is equally culpable as far as genocide is concerned, you cannot look further beyond Washington, D.C. And you are right there, and you can do that. So India, I don't think India is looking at an alliance, quote unquote. An alignment is fair. We have talked about it. Multilateralism, plurilateralism, minilateralism, and what have you. India is also likely, once normalcy is restored, to make some kind of outreach to the Iranian side as well. We have sent a new ambassador to Tehran. He's an accomplished diplomat, considerable experience in the region. I think he has been very carefully selected for this position. So India has signaled that it is not going to pick and choose between various friends in the region. India has very substantial ties with the region. What it needs to do is to build a collective engagement, start discussing issues. They're of a medium term, truce and ceasefire and all. Post that, start looking at various issues connected with regional collective security. That is the principal challenge. After the bloodletting that we have had, we don't want a repeat of this after a few years. It's not help. And every time there is a repeat, it's much more lethal compared to what it was earlier. So I would recommend that India's diplomatic engagement should commence. India should be robustly involved with the region without getting involved in any of these military alignments that are being talked about. Many of them are just of a symbolic character. Many of them, I think, including the latest one, they have a long way to go. There are far too many internal contradictions. They have not enough consultation has taken place. The symbolic value, I think, overwhelms the substantive value as of today. But India cannot be and should not exclude itself from the various challenges that are there in West Asia. West Asia has been our partner and friend, and its people have been close to us for 5 millennia. It's a relationship valued very deeply across India as also across the region itself. We are welcomed. There's a very high level of comfort in terms of an engagement with India. So I think India cannot and should not excuse itself from the various challenges that are next door.
Ambassador Saab, on this profound note, I think we should end this discussion. And I want to also wish you a very happy birthday and many, many, many more years of.
And we advance in age. Birthdays are less celebratory and more contemplative. Sources of contemplation.
Things are changing so much. They say that 60 is the new 40. So we from that
Well,
point of view.
I'm there. You just mentioned it.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
joining.
very much, Professor. It's wonderful to be. We both share a very strong affinity with this city of Pune.
Yeah.
You through your wife and family, and I also. My children are here now, and many people I'm very close to are here as well.
Thank you very much, sir.
I wish you all the best. Thank you.